Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Community Connection. I'm Robert Day, CEO, Patrick Henry Family Services. And normally at this time, I would introduce my co-host, Claudia Fletcher, but she is not here today. So what am I going to do about opening playful banter? Mr. Producer,
Hello, Mr. Day.
Rob Meister, you back there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I heard that you're not wearing hair product today.
This is correct. I do not look like Jimmy Neutron today.
As if anybody really cares, but I appreciate you sharing that with everybody.
You're welcome.
Hey, real quick, give me one reason why you like working here at Patrick Henry Family Services.
I think the cause. I believe in our cause, and I believe in the collaborative efforts that we're doing in our community and kind of leading out. So that would be my one reason off the top of my head.
Well, I think that's a good introduction to what we're talking about today, kinship navigation, right? It's part of our strategy to confront the reasons why foster care exists. And as producer, one of your jobs is to make sure that we have guests from across our community who are doing that. And today we have somebody within our own organization. So, Mr. Producer, I'm going to let you have the opportunity of introducing our three guests today. How about that?
Oh, cool. Well, I appreciate that. I didn't really know a whole lot about what kinship was. Kinship navigation about a year ago was the first time I think that I started to kind of be exposed to that, and then realized that so many people in our community are actually already doing it.
That's right.
Even without knowing it.
Right.
So we have three of our Kinship Navigator team.
The Three Musketeers.
That would be, I think we should start calling them that.
I think we should. It's better than the Three Stooges, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. And so, they come from all kinds of different backgrounds and places and different things, but they have one heart. When you talk to them, it's really cool. So let's see. So we have Martha Lynch, and we have Landon Beal, and we have Cameron Dean. And they are all some of the most energetic and caring people I have ever met.
That's a great introduction. Thank you. Rob?
Yes.
Good to have you guys here today.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
So, Landon, you were actually saying early on before we started that kinship is a word that's been around a long time. We kind of just, all of us know instinctively what we're talking about when we mean kinship. But that word kinship navigator makes it a new kind of thing, right? And so we're going to talk about it. And we're going to get in the nuts and bolts of how we're confronting the reasons why foster care exists and how kinship navigation is helping to zero down those numbers, right? But first, I'd like for you guys to start with a story. So so everybody knows that these are our kinship navigators. They're like case managers for the kinship navigation program. And so they're working with these kinship families, right? So we'll start with you, Martha. We'll go around. Tell us one of your favorite stories without divulging confidential information, right? That will help us understand what it is that you do.
Awesome. Thanks, Mr. Day.
Yeah.
So my favorite story happened pretty recently, actually. I had been working with a kinship caregiver who's a single grandmother, and she's been a kinship caregiver for 13 years. But she had been connected to Kinship Navigator about 7-8 months ago. So think about all that time she wasn't receiving support. She was just doing it on her own. And now she has 2 beautiful teenage granddaughters. And we reached a point where she wasn't really needing much other than just basic resources, a check-in here and there. And we had our monthly support group coming up. So I said, hey, do you want to come out to our support group this month? We're going to be talking about this. I think it might be really great. You get a free meal and childcare. Why don't you come on out? She said, yeah, I think I will this time. Now, mind you, she hadn't been really engaging with our peer support. So I'm like, great, yes, she's going to come. It's going to be awesome. She comes and she walks through our front door without her granddaughters. And you can just see her faint smile. I'm like, hey there, how are you doing today? And you can see that smile turn to a frown.
Oh, wow.
And her shoulders just slumped over. And you could just see her whole expression change to just somberness and sadness, actually. And she expressed that, hey, I've just been diagnosed with colon cancer and I don't know what I'm going to do. So we took her into our support group, and we had been working through different peer support options, how we can best support her during this journey. And we had a pretty good plan in place on how we can support her. And then a few weeks down the road, she's starting her treatments, and I get a phone call from her. Martha, I don't know what I'm going to do. I know what my cancer is now, but now I have a $5,000 house bill that's been overdue from an application for rent relief that actually was never processed, and I didn't know about it. So now she's $5,000 behind on rent, and she didn't know how she was going to pay it by the end of that month, or she had to be evicted. So it was a really scary spot for her to be in, and we were working through the different community resources that could help with rent relief, and we reached the point where we had maybe 7 days for $5,000.
Wow.
And we were starting to lose a little bit of hope. But we were just working through it. And I had to reach the point of having the conversation, hey, this eviction, it's right around the corner. I want to make sure we prepare you well in the event of we don't get this money. So I start having the conversation of safe families for children for her granddaughters so that they're in a safe home should the eviction go through. And our awesome coordinator for Safe Families, Nicole Thorne, she had a conversation with a potential host family who said, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to host the girls. We'd love to be part of that, step into that space with them. But how about we pay the whole $5,000?
Wow.
So I got a phone call from Nicole saying, hey, we have someone who's willing to host, but they're willing to pay the whole $5,000 so they can keep their home. And it was the best conversation I got to have with this caregiver, and she was just she was rejoicing. Like, this was over a phone call, and you could just tell she was jumping up and down the best she could and going through cancer treatments. But praise God. I mean, he moves in great ways. So I just think that's the perfect picture of what we do to keep a child safe in their own home, literally in their own home that they grew up in 13 years.
So rather than those granddaughters being foster cared, they get to be with their grandmother. But grandma needs some support, particularly now that she's ill. And I love the fact that we had this other program that the kids could step into, Safe Families for Children, and we were ready to move that way. But I really love that they caught the vision that still being with grandma is better than them coming to us. And then they were willing to step in and make that sacrifice of a $5,000. That's just incredible. Yeah, and I think God does get the credit for that because he's moving in people's hearts in ways that we can't even imagine.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful story. Lanny, you got a story you want to share with us?
Less of a single story and more of
Okay.
an observation of our caregivers as a whole. Something I've learned working with several different caregivers, and all of them have a wildly dramatic story that is beautiful and unique to them. But something that they all have in common is this incredible resilience that they work through. I've come to refer to our caregivers as superheroes.
Wow.
Some of them really, the lives that they live and the things they have to go through, the battles they have to face, they're nothing short of superheroes. The way they care for their kids and step into places. Some of them, in the matter of an hour, they go from, I haven't raised a kid in 20 years, and now I have 4. For who knows how long, the next couple weeks, or for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, full 18 years.
Yeah, and I have learned something about trusting the Lord that I had never learned anywhere else until I stepped into these lives, and they invited us in and said, like, this is what our lives look like. We get a phone call like that, and it's like, hey, this is what happened today. And in my mind, I'm like, man, this is the hardest thing I've ever heard of. And for them, it's like the Lord will take care of it. Like, this is what we do because we love our kids. Or we love our grandkids. Or we love our nieces or nephews. Or we love our neighbor as in fictive kin. So instead of a specific story for just one of our caregivers, it's this dramatically humbling experience to walk alongside some of the greatest people in our community.
Particularly, I think those grandparents who are either retired or nearing retirement age, and now they have children to take care of. They didn't sign up for it. It wasn't part of their dream or their expectations, but they step into that space sacrificially to do that. And so sometimes they need support, and that's what you guys are doing, right? You're coming around. As they put a circle of support around those children, you're trying to put a circle of support around them. Yeah. That's a beautiful observation. Cameron, how about you? What's your story? By the way, Cameron has our seniority as a kinship navigator among the three one here, so she's the old wise one among the three, right?
Indeed.
Wow, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate that. Yes, so a story I have. So there was a aunt that I started caring for. She had suddenly come into care with these two of her niece and nephew, and it was a very sudden, like, overnight change. She was like, "Oh, I now have to make room for two kids in my house," and she had her own child as well, so it was just a lot. She was very overwhelmed, and a lot of times this is a sudden and just change that they kind of just have to roll on with. And then so somehow she got connected to us, and I spoke with her that first time, and just being able to listen to her, share her concerns, share what had just happened over the past week. She was very, like, relieved to know that someone was listening to her and then going to walk through it with her. So that was just awesome to be able to be a part of. So from there, we just worked on getting her and the kids settled, getting the things that she needed in the home so that it was fit to care for them. And then, just in, like, the change of events with the kids' parents becoming too close to the home, for the kids' safety, the aunt realized, she was like, they're not going to be able to stay with me anymore, but they had a great aunt and uncle who was willing to take them in. So I think that just shows, like, the beauty of, like, those family connections. And while they still didn't have to go into foster care, they were able to go with another close family member and still interact with this aunt at the same time. So they moved on to their home, and that's where they are currently, and they are just doing so well. The aunt and uncle are so grateful to have been connected with us as well, and I just think it's awesome that I was able to work with the aunt at first and, help her until, as much as she needed, and then still be able to continue supporting the same children and the same family, just with a different home. So I think that's just really a beautiful way to highlight how those connections are. And yeah, the kids are doing great now. They're getting into all kinds of activities. We continue to support them. We see them every month at our support group. So it's just a really awesome opportunity.
Great story.
Yeah.
We didn't invent kinship navigation here at Patrick Henry Family Services. It's actually a brainchild of the state, right, of the foster care system, which I think is a beautiful idea because they recognize that there's a resource there and there's some power there. And there's less trauma for a child, we assume, less trauma for a child to be placed with extended family than it is with strangers in a foster family, right? And I would think in most cases that is true. And so I think this is a beautiful partnership between a faith-based nonprofit and the state, who said this is a better way to do it. And we agree. So it's just natural for us to want to step into the space and do it. So we're, right, you three are part of our response of saying, yeah, this is a good idea, and let's do it. I think we have a video back there, don't we, guys, that talk about Kinship Navigator. I think this would be a good time to show it, if we can.
Everywhere you look, there's a heart, a hand to hold on to. Everywhere you look, there's a face of somebody who needs you. Everywhere you look, when you're lost out there and you're all alone, life is waiting to carry you home. Everywhere you look.
I love that.
Love how it made it in there.
I know.
That's how I made it in
Reappearance.
there. And congratulations to the team who put that together. I think that was
Yes.
really well done.
It really captured what
And
we
I
do.
appreciate you guys, being willing to put yourself out there like that. That's awesome. You probably guys grew up with that show, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
We love Full House.
Yeah, who doesn't? Which is of kinship.
That
Wasn't
is
that a kinship
true.
placement, right? And it was an effective placement, right? Because those three guys, well, they weren't all related to the twin, or not to the twins. It was actually one, but
Yeah, they came in to
True.
they
support.
came in to support him,
Yeah.
right? So that,
Uncles.
yeah,
Yep.
the uncles, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Love it.
So How did the three of you get interested in this kind of thing? I mean, what was the journey that brought you into not just Patrick Henry, but to this job that you're doing, right? And this time we'll go the other way around. So we'll start with you, Cameron.
Okay. Yeah, so I have always had an interest in helping kids and ensuring the safety of kids. And I worked with kids for a while before going to college. And while I loved it, I realized like in order for the kids to have the best life possible, you also need to support the family as a whole, including their parents, their caregivers. So that's when as going into college, I decided to study social work so that I could be a part of like the back end of supporting them in that way and ensuring the safety in the long run. So yeah, I studied social work at Liberty, got my degree. My senior year, I did my internship here on the care team. So that was I had my hand in almost all of the programs. But Kinship, Navigator was a newer program at the time. And it was something that I was kind of getting to be a part of, like it growing and seeing the processes and stuff like that. And so, yeah, and Nicolette at the time, she was the only Kinship Navigator advocate here. And she kind of took me under her wing, and I'm so grateful for that. She mentored me so much in that time and just showed me the beauty of helping these families and what makes it unique. And so, yeah, since then, I've been so privileged and grateful to be a part of this. It's a very unique role. I think we get to support our caregivers in so many different ways, which is awesome.
So as a person of faith, you feel like social work was your way God was calling you to make a difference, right?
Definitely, yes.
People often don't think about that, right? They think people just kind of choose a career in social work and maybe they have their
Right.
faith on the side, but this is integrated in your life, right?
Definitely. Without him, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. I turn to him every day because just like we were kind of talking about before, the things that these families face are so hard. But knowing like there is hope and there is a light at the end of that tunnel, God provides that for us, which is awesome.
And we have an intern right now working with you guys in Kinship Navigator. You want to give a shout out?
Yes, Ashlyn. She is our current social work intern. She is amazing. She's also doing all the programs. And she's doing a great job. We love to have her.
Good job, Ashlyn.
Yes.
All right. How about you, sir? You come from a little bit different background than social
I
work.
do, yeah. I also was at Liberty recently, and I got my degree in psychology and counseling. And when I first came to Liberty, I thought the city of Lynchburg sucked.
Oh,
I did.
let's just lay it on the table
Yep.
here.
Well.
And I was on campus my first 3 years, and then I moved downtown, and everything changed.
Really? Explain.
The shift of campus and the world of Liberty being my whole life to actually being in the neighborhood with Lynchburg locals and seeing what there's a lot of culture and life within Lynchburg that I never saw. And it was humbling to unlearn what I thought to be true about the city as I moved downtown and saw an entirely new world. And the Lord really broke my heart for the city and the people within it. So that my last year of school and the year following, it was immersing myself in something that was far bigger than I was. And it wasn't I want to be a part of the city to save it, because there's a lot of good things already happening.
Sure.
I just wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be there. So as I graduated and decided to stick around, I found myself here working for a company that views the city the same way, as just a place to be a part of, to make a positive difference, meet people where they're at.
So you're kind of describing a bubble, right? When you live and spend all your time on a college campus, whether it's Liberty or any college campus, it's kind of bubble, right? You're learning about the outside world, but never being in the outside world.
Right.
So you're telling me like your best and deepest education happened
Absolutely.
outside of the
Walking
campus.
down Main Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful story. Cool. How about you, Martha?
So I didn't start out in social work in college. I wanted to heal people physically through physical therapy, specifically for the elderly population. I had a really big heart for the elderly. I had lots of experience working in a nursing facility, kind of helping my own grandparents transition. So I had a really big heart for them. I still do. And then I finally changed over to social work because it was revealed to me very fast that helping them physically through rehabilitation was not my strong suit.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, how else can I do it? Social work. I can still help the elderly that way. And then I still had this great big passion. I was dead set on working with the elderly once I graduated. But things changed when my own niece came to live with us with my sister.
Oh, yeah.
So I helped out being her caretaker quite a bit of the time when I was home from college. And things changed for me. Seeing just the strain and the selfless giving of your time to care for someone you didn't give birth to, especially on my mom. Our caregivers, at the drop of a hat, they run for those children. So that was just a really small taste for me to see that. And when I changed into social work and I was getting ready to do my field hours and I was placed here, I'm like, all right, I think children and families, that's where I'm meant to be. And when I jumped in, I had my first week, there was just a strong confirmation. Yeah, Martha, this is where you are supposed to be. And I was supposed to be with Homes of Hope. So I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, I just started taking care of my niece and I can help young moms. But then that changed and I got placed with Kinship Navigator. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is my niche. I think this is it. So it was just, again, a humbling experience, just being able to experience the joys and also the hurts that our caregivers go through, because it's all selfless giving. And like Landon said, they're superheroes. They really are. So yeah, that's just kind of my journey. And I thought I knew what I was going to do, and I was dead set I was going to do it. But the Lord humbled me really quick, and I'm happy
He has a
he
tendency
did.
to do that with folks, doesn't he?
Yes.
He does.
And
But
it
you know
works
what?
out.
What's cool is your first story was about a grandma taking care of, right? So there's still this kind of this elderly population in Kinship Navigator, your heart, right? So I just think it's, if God puts something in your heart, He's still going to use it.
Absolutely.
Just often in ways you didn't first think about, right?
Yeah, it's all about family.
It is all about family. Wow. Great stories. So this is your chance to ask me a question, right? So I'm like your boss's boss's boss. So what would you ask your boss's boss's boss if you had a chance? This is your chance, and it'll be forever recorded for posterity's sake.
Obviously, your role within Kinship is less involved than what we do, but you play a huge piece of it. From a higher up point of view, how have you seen the impact of Kinship Navigator, both within our company and then in the community that we serve?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I spend most of my time thinking of the bigger picture and kind of the macro issues, to use a social work term. I think of it from a macro, while you guys are down in the micro, right, working with clients. I'm thinking systems and big goals. So how do you make foster care obsolete? How do you make it where children don't need to go into foster care? And one way is if you can't get ahead of the brokenness and the hurt, can you get in front and divert them out of the system, this big bureaucratic, often impersonal system? And Kinship Navigator just makes perfect sense. It's more natural, it's less traumatic for children, and it's really a bottom-up answer instead of a top-down answer, right? Foster care is just top-down. We've got these laws and all these regulations and all these policies and all this red tape, and the hands of caseworkers are often tied. If a child's in foster care, there's a whole different set of rules they have to follow, and timelines, et cetera. If you put them in kinship navigation, and they're not a child of the state, right? They're not in the custody, or they're not a ward of the state, then none of those other regulations apply, and they can live more natural lives, right? Grandparents can make those kind of decisions instead of a caseworker who's never raised those children, may not even know those children.
Yeah.
So for me, it just seemed like a big answer to a lot of small personal problems, right? So I love the fact that we're working with the state to do that they have the foresight to see that this is a better answer, but that they don't feel like they have to do it. Because if they really operated Kinship Neighborhood, they'd be under all these rules and regulations. So they're letting us in this regard. We are freer in that respect, right? And so it's just I think it's just it's an answer. So that's how I see it. And so when we took this on, we made a decision in senior leadership that if the money for Kinship Navigator stops, so the state says, at one point they said this is a good idea, and at some point they may say we can't afford it anymore. We said we're going to keep doing this. We will find the money because we believe in it. All right, so we're already, just to be truthful, spending more money than we're receiving to do it because we can take more kids if we do that. So I think it's just always going to be part of our toolkit to do this. We just got to get this. How do we scale it to make it more possible for more kids to do this, where they really that not only are in the support of extended families, but that there's these circles of support. Right? We believe in circles of support. That used to be much more natural in the day when extended family often lived near each other, sometimes in their own homes, right? It just was more natural. Today's society has gotten more complicated. So this is trying to put some of the old answers back together. And I love the fact that it's you, as young professionals, who are making this happen. Not old farts like me, right? You guys are doing it. And not only is this program, I think, part of the future of child welfare, but you guys, with your hearts and your call, are also part of God's solution for this. He's raising up an army of people. Just how He's touched your heart, I'm seeing this happening all over the country. We're just swimming in the same river a lot of people are swimming in right now, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So, does that answer your question?
It does answer my question.
That was a good question. Thanks for setting me up so I could knock that out of the park.
Home run, Mr. Day.
Love it.
Thank you. So, one of you mentioned fictive care. Explain fictive care, somebody, for me. How's that different than kinship care?
Yeah. So fictive kin is when you've had a prior relationship to the child. So I think the best example is maybe like a godfather, godmother. Just if you had a prior relationship to the child before the placement, you're a fictive caregiver.
And foster care workers will see that as a viable placement, right? And they get the same kind of background checks, etc. Nobody's putting kids in unsafe places, whether they are family or not, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. But yeah, because sometimes family are people who are not legally related to you, right? And can be very close to you. So again, it's about keeping kids from being so traumatized.
Right.
Any of you working with a fictive family right now? Are you?
Yes, I think I have a couple. One sticks out in my mind that I do have. She was very close friends with their parents, and then took them in to raise them, and now they're her children. She raises them as her own.
That's beautiful.
So yeah, I love how to see they don't even have blood relation, yet they're still willing to make the same sacrifice as a relative would, which, like you said, to your point, like family doesn't mean blood. So it's just awesome to see that same sacrifice being made, so it doesn't even matter. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, in our last remaining time, tell us how somebody interested in this, because they know a child in their extended family or somebody that they know at their church, how can they tap into the resources and help of Kinship Navigation? Who do they call? Who do they email? Who do they text? Who wants to take that? The senior most person on the block here?
Well, you could call me if you do my extension.
What's the main number?
Yes, so you could call or text 434-300-HOPE, and that would get to us. You could also email our team at kinship@patrickhenry.org. and one of us will get back with you and get you set up.
Okay, excellent. Is there an intake worker who takes a call and then kind of takes it off to you guys? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Lauren, our awesome intake coordinator, she would be happy to be the first touch point. And I'd like to add also our website is also a great way because though you're a kinship caregiver, you don't have to wait for a social worker to refer you to our program. You can refer
Straight
yourself.
there, yeah.
Yes. So if you go to our website, kinshipnav.org, that's a really great place to get connected, see what our program's all about, and also find some resources too, because not all caregivers will connect with our program, but we want to equip them with the resources that they might need to go from surviving to thriving. So
From surviving to thriving. That's a nice way to end this. From surviving to thriving. Yes. Hey guys, can I say that I'm proud of you? That feels a little odd, like kind of elderly saying to you young people, "I'm so proud of you, young people." That's better than hearing some of the things you probably hear as young people, right? Right? I'm always here, all the millennials or the Zs, but I go, wow, I've got some wonderful examples of some young professionals who are just knocking it out of the park. You guys got the heart for this. You've got the educational base for this. You guys are going to make a difference, not just in these people's lives. And that's if that's all, that would be wonderful. But you guys are going to make systemic changes in the long run, and I believe that with all my heart. So, hey, if you guys liked what you heard today, reach out to these three and tell them thank you. Send them a text, send them an email, give them a call, shout out. I'm sure they like gifts too, chocolate, donuts, what?
that's a great idea, but we're bound by ethics that we can't accept gifts.
Oh, you can't.
I guess we could. We can make an exception.
Yeah, and I'm not talking, come on, from your colleagues. I'm talking about from your colleagues.
Yeah, I
right?
welcome gifts.
Cameron's like, I'm going to go for it.
Well, as the senior most experienced person on this team, we've got it clarified. Thank you. Hey, thanks all three of you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
It's really cool to have you here. Hey, we'll see you guys next Thursday on Community Connection.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. Not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.